Hello, moms and dads and boys and girls. It's good to be back with you. I hope you are all doing well, and especially if you have started school again, I hope that you're enjoying that and doing well and staying safe. And we're praying for the safety of all of our teachers and students as they go back to school and try to get back to something like normal. Um, Today, we have a reading that's going to be a little bit more geared towards some of our older kids. But I hope that even some of our younger ones can listen in, because I'm going to have some pictures and a slideshow here to follow along as I read. This is a story taken from the book 10 Boys Who Changed the World by Irene Howitt, and it is the story of a man who found himself in a rather unexpected place. And it begins with him as a young boy during a very tough time in Europe's history. So let's begin our reading today, and I hope that you will enjoy, and your boys and girls can enjoy and talk about the questions after the reading is through. Andrew crept along the dark side of the hedge, stopping only long enough to look behind him into the night to listen for any sounds that would warn him he was being followed. All he heard was the hooting of an owl in the wood near the village. He crept on. A shaft of light fell across the footpath where there was a break in the hedge. The boy edged toward the gap, pulling his mask down over his face so that anyone looking out of the window wouldn't see him. Slowly, very slowly, Andrew leaned forward, glanced at the window, and sighed with relief. Although the light was on, there didn't seem to be anyone in the room, at least not on this end of the window. He darted round the hedge and out of the shaft of light. Only a few more steps and he would know if it was there. As he edged along the side of the house, Andrew kept his ears open for any sound from inside and his hands out in front of him to feel for it. Suddenly, it was there. First one hand, then another came in touch with the cold metal of bicycle handlebars. The boy knelt down, every bit of him as tense as a cat about to spring, and felt over the bike. Was it tied to a drain pipe? Was there a chain that would stop it moving? There didn't seem to be. He sat down and leaned against the wall. He knew what he had to do, but he was scared half out of his mind. Anger suddenly filled every part of him, and the anger of a 12-year-old can be a terrific thing. What right has he to work for the Germans? He demanded of himself. How can a Dutchman work for the enemy? He's a traitor. All of his family are traitors. Well, he'll find it harder to do his dirty work without his bike. Stuffing his handkerchief into the bell so that it would be absolutely silent, and taking off the chain to prevent it clicking as it moved, Andrew retraced his steps, this time with the bike beside him. Through the shafts of light he went, knowing that if he was caught, he might not see his family again. Round the hedge into the blissful darkness, then down the road to safety. Only when he was in the wood did Andrew replace the chain, taking the hanky from the bell to wipe the sweat from his face and mount the bicycle. There was not a sweeter moment in his life till then, when he braked at the school, ringing the bell for all he was worth. A member of the Dutch resistance opened the door to see what the noise was. "Well done," the man said, slapping the boy on the back. "You're doing a man's job, Andrew. The war will be won for the likes of you." And that's what Andrew was in the middle of, a war, the Second World War. Suddenly, Andrew was surrounded by men, and they were all talking. "That traitor will be useless without his bike," one said, "and we can put it to good use for the cause," added another. But it was the third man that thrilled the boy with what he said. "You're a natural for the underground, son, a natural." The kind of cleverness that Andrew used for the resistance, he also used to get out of attending church. Because his father was deaf, the family sat in the short front seat. Sunday by Sunday, he would lag behind so that he was the one for whom there was no room. "I'll have to sit in the back again," he'd moan, moving quickly to the rear of the church before anyone offered to swap with him. Then during the first hymn, he was off, coming back only when he knew the service was about to end. It probably didn't come as a surprise to anyone when Andrew decided to be a soldier, although it made his mother very sad. The Second World War was over by then, and he was posted not to the German border, but to Indonesia. As a boy, he'd been really scared when he was working for the resistance, but as a soldier, he thought he was invincible. He came to believe that whoever was hit by a bullet, it certainly wouldn't be him. But Andrew was wrong, and the bullet that went right through his ankle left him crippled. He was just 20 years old. "Do you want this?" the nurse in the Army hospital asked when he had begun to recover from surgery. She had a Bible in her hand. "It was in your bag." Andrew looked at the Bible his mother had given him when he joined the Army. He hadn't opened it once, and he didn't want to look at it now. He was angry with God, if there was a God. But hospitals can be a boring place, and eventually he was bored enough that he began to read his mother's Bible. "I think you should sleep for a while," a young doctor said, finding his patient still reading hours later. "I'm not tired," Andrew replied. "Have you ever read this?" he asked. "I had no idea it was interesting. It's like an adventure." "I suppose it depends on which bit you read," said the doctor. Andrew looked puzzled. "I started at the beginning. That's where books usually start." Between reading his Bible and writing to his 72 Dutch pen pals, Andrew's time in the hospital passed quite quickly. One of his pen pals was a Christian girl, and she answered all the questions that he had as best as she could. In November 1949, Andrew left the Army and was sent home. With part of his pay, he bought a bicycle. "I'd better buy one than steal one," he thought, remembering back to his childhood. "Is he all right?" his father asked over and over again as he returned home. "He's either stuck reading the Bible or he's bicycling off to church services all over the place." Andrew's sister shook her head. "I'm worried about him too. It's just not natural. Maybe the war has bent his mind." "I don't know about that," father said. "I think it's his way of coping with being crippled, but I hope he grows out of it. Nobody likes people who are too religious." But Andrew didn't grow out of it. Not very long after coming back home from Indonesia, he discovered for himself that the Bible was true. The former underground boy and soldier found new life in Jesus, and he was wondering about his future. Andrew prayed, "Lord, show me what you want me to do with my life." And God did show Andrew what he wanted him to do. And he also showed him that his childhood experience of the Dutch resistance during wartime was good training for Christian service. Brother Andrew, that's what he became known as, soon found himself working as a smuggler for God. After the Second World War, many communist countries banned the Bible. It was as though a line, it was known as the Iron Curtain, was drawn across Europe. On the Western side, people were free to come and go, to be Christians or Muslims or nothing at all. On the Eastern side, behind the Iron Curtain, men and women were not free to travel, not free to have Bibles, not even free to teach their own children about Jesus. It was for those people that Brother Andrew became a smuggler, taking Bibles and other Christian books and tracts to people who could be put in prison if they were found in possession of them. "I can hardly take in all that the Lord has done in the 10 years since I became a Christian," Brother Andrew said to one of his friends. "You take this car, for example. Do you want to know how I got it?" Brother Andrew said. His friend nodded and listened to the story. "A couple I heard about at the work was doing smuggling Bibles and tracts behind the Iron Curtain. They realized that I could take much larger quantities if I had a car. And they know I don't walk well, and they thought it would make my job a whole lot easier. I was in West Berlin when I phoned them to tell them my plans. 'You'd better come right back here for the keys,' my old friend told me. 'What keys?' I asked. I remember him chuckling at the end of the phone. 'We got you a car,' my friend said. 'If you come for the keys, you can drive all the way to Moscow if you dare.' I went right back, collected the car, and tucked as many boxes of Bibles in it as I could." "Is that why you call this the miracle car?" Andrew's friend asked. Brother Andrew laughed. "That's one reason. The other is that it keeps on going." It was that same car that Brother Andrew was driving when he reached the Yugoslavian border one day. Drawing up at the checkpoint, he prayed, "Lord, I have Bibles in the car. When you were on earth, you made blind eyes to see. Please make seeing eyes blind so that the guards don't see my Bibles." "Anything to declare?" the guard asked. "My watch, money, camera, only small things." Andrew was telling the truth because the Bibles were small. We don't need to bother about those things, the guard said, handing Brother Andrew back his passport. Thank you for making them blind to the boxes, he prayed as he drove into Yugoslavia with his precious load. For the next 7 weeks, he was there, and he held 80 meetings and gave out hundreds of Bibles and tracts. Marta, a young Christian girl, was delighted to have a Bible of your own. Tell me about yourself, Brother Andrew invited. I was brought up in a Christian home, she said, and I became a Christian myself. At school, I always say a prayer before my lunch. Because of that, I was expelled from school by the communists. I was told I couldn't go back because I was filling the other pupils' heads with nonsense. But I'm a Christian, and I can't pretend I'm not. That would be denying Jesus. Brother Andrew prayed with Marta, asking God to give her strength and courage for the future. The road was dusty as he left Marta's town. It's amazing this car doesn't die, Brother Andrew said to Nikolai, a Yugoslav believer, as the dust blew all around. You'd think the dust would get into the engine. I'm sure God stops that happening because we pray about it each morning. Nicholas smiled. I never heard anyone praying over a car before I met you. As they drove along, a small truck approached them from the opposite direction. It had foreign license plates on it, just like Brother Andrew's car. And when the drivers saw each other, they stopped to discuss the state of the road. You're Brother Andrew, the other car driver said, and this is the miracle car. Nicola grinned. All the Christians know him, he thought. It's amazing the communists haven't found out about him. May I have a look at your car? The lorry driver said. I'm a mechanic, and it wouldn't do any harm to give it a going over. You drive so many miles. Having spent some time under the bonnet, the lorry driver scratched his head and looked puzzled. Is there anything wrong, Brother Andrew asked. No, the man answered. The car's going well, but I can't work out how it's going at all. The carburetor is clogged, so are the spark plugs. The air filter is totally clogged up. This car should have stopped running thousands of miles ago. The mechanic set about to unclog the carburetor and spark plugs, and he did what he could about the air filter. Then he tuned the engine and changed the oil. Look after it, he told the two men. It's a miracle car, so don't abuse it. And it was just as big a miracle meeting a Christian mechanic on a lonely road in Yugoslavia, and one who knew Brother Andrew. God provided a mechanic for the car. He provided a car for Brother Andrew. And through the Dutch Christian, the Lord provided many Bibles and tracts to many thousands of people who would otherwise not have been able to read God's word for themselves. Brother Andrew did some great work, boys and girls, and he said some very wise things. Some of those you can see on the screen, and you can talk about those with your moms and dads. But this is the last one that I want to leave you with. And I want you to remember this. He says the Bible is full of ordinary people who went to impossible places and did wondrous things simply because they decided to obey God. Brother Andrew worked for many, many years carrying Bibles into countries where it was illegal to have a Bible. And he's still living today. And though he's very old, he still loves to talk about the work that he did. And I hope that you will be inspired by this godly example. And maybe one day, God will put you in a place where even though it's scary, even though you don't know how you're going to accomplish the work, God will do great things through you because you just listened to him and obeyed what he said. And that's my hope for all of you boys and girls. I love you, and I will see you soon. God bless.